Can you lend me some money to go to the hospital? Late one night, my 8-year-old grandson, Max, came to our house, dragging his leg in pain. Even for an adult, it's over an hour's walk to our house. What on earth had happened? I noticed scrapes and blood on various parts of his body. Exhausted and in pain, his eyes were vacant, and he seemed on the verge of collapsing. I absolutely won't lend you any money. My husband, enraged, stormed off somewhere after yelling at the innocent child. Afterward, his unexpected actions shook me to my core. I am Vicky Morris, 60 years old. My husband and I lived alone. Our son and his wife lived in the next town. It's about an hour's walk from our home, and the train service is poor. So a car is essential for traveling. My daughter-in-law, Susanna, is 6 years younger than my son, Brian, and they have an 8-year-old son, Max. Until now, Brian often brought Max to our house, so I've been taking care of Max since he was a baby. On the other hand, Susanna rarely visited. I told my son to bring them over, but he declined it because he wanted to give Susanna some free time for her devotion to housework and childcare until now. Moreover, my son was very satisfied with their family life, saying, "Susanna is very domestic and takes good care of us. As a mother, maybe it's not my place to interfere." I convinced myself to let them do as they please. But I had no idea such a tragedy was about to strike. It happened 6 months ago when my son got a promotion and was assigned overseas. Brian, who loves his family and didn't want to be apart, wished to move abroad with them. But Susanna objected. Max has just started elementary school, and he has friends here. It's cruel to make him transfer schools. My son tried to persuade her, but she insisted, and he left for overseas alone, reluctantly. Sadly, that was when Max stopped visiting us. I repeatedly asked Susanna to let me see Max, but she always made excuses and refused. Despite this, I begged her over the phone, just to see Max for a moment. But she became agitated and accused me. "It's hard enough without my husband, I can't bear to worry about you too. Are you trying to monitor me?" "No, that's not it at all. I just want to see Max's face at the doorstep. Just for a short while. Can't you understand I don't want that? If you keep pestering me, I'll tell Brian, and he'll scold you." After saying that, she abruptly hung up. Sigh, it seems hopeless. Maybe that's just how daughters-in-law are. I learned from my son's email that he was very busy at his new post, having little time to sleep. Not wanting to worry Brian unnecessarily, I decided to wait to see Max until my son returned home. Before I knew it, more than 6 months had passed since I last saw Max. My husband and I, missing our grandson, looked at his photos every day. Jim's favorite was a photo taken at the elementary school orientation, noting how cute Max looked with his nervous expression. Then, one evening around 9 p.m., our doorbell suddenly rang. When I opened the door, "Can you lend me some money to go to the hospital?" My 8-year-old grandson had suddenly appeared. "What happened?" "My leg hurts, and I can't sleep, so I decided to go to the hospital myself. But I only have this." Max slowly opened his hand, revealing 3 10-cent coins. Apparently, he had walked over an hour, dragging his leg in pain. "My knees got scraped when I fell," he said, showing his bloody knees. I couldn't comprehend it all. As I tried to invite Max inside to hear the full story, my husband, who had been silent until then, suddenly spoke up. "I absolutely won't lend you any money." "What are you saying? You're out of your mind. Our grandson is in trouble." I was so angry at Jim's cold attitude that I grabbed his sweater with both hands and shook him. But he pushed my hands away with incredible strength and left the house without a word. "It's because I came. I'm sorry. I'll go back." Max shrank away, turned his back to me, and reached for the doorknob. Max, don't worry about Grandpa. Grandma will take you to the hospital, so don't be afraid. I immediately called our family clinic and tried to call Susanna. But she didn't answer, nor did she read my messages. About 20 minutes later, we arrived at the clinic, then the doctor diagnosed Max with a fracture. After receiving treatment, we were advised to keep Max at home for rest and recovery. What could Susanna be doing at a time like this? At this point, I still couldn't get in touch with Susanna, so I decided to take Max back to our home. Would you like something warm to drink? Oh, you used to like tea with honey, didn't you? Sit down in that chair, Max. Grandma will prepare it for you. As soon as we arrived home, I filled the kettle with water and turned on the stove. Suddenly, Max approached me. Oh dear, you should be resting. No, Grandma, it's not that. You see. At that moment, Max revealed a shocking truth to me, his eyes brimming with tears. So that's what happened. You must have been so scared. But it's okay, now. I embraced him gently, trying to comfort him. Then, unexpectedly, I was informed of a certain event by an unlikely person. Those responsible for making Max suffer like this won't get away with this. A flame of revenge began to burn within me. The next day at noon, Susanna finally answered my phone call. Max has fractured his leg and got treatment at the clinic. He's staying at our house now. Apparently, resting at home and eating nutritious food will help him recover faster. Well, then, why don't you continue to take care of Max for a while? You must be happy to finally spend plenty of time with your grandson, right? I replied with a simple understood, and ended the call. I had no intention of sending Max back to that house. Even if Susanna had said she was coming to pick up Max, I was determined to keep him with me. Her response was actually what I had hoped for. However, her attitude as a mother infuriated me. But getting into a heated argument now would ruin my plan. In the meantime, while supporting Max, I started making preparations for my retaliation. Just wait and see. Today, I will make them regret what they did. A week after Max came to stay, I left him at home and, along with someone else, confronted Susanna at her house. What are you doing here so suddenly? I'm in trouble because you came without noticing. Please leave. I had borrowed a key to their house from Max. Ignoring Susanna's hysterical complaints, I observed the room. Was someone here just before we arrived? I noticed that the sheets on the bedroom bed were unusually disheveled. Stop this already. I'll call the police. Oh, Susanna, you don't have any right to say that. I heard everything from Max. Leaving him alone and gallivanting around at night, huh? What? I strictly told him not to tell anyone. Indeed, the shocking truth Max had tearfully revealed to me was about this. According to Max, one day when he was feeling lonely because of a cold, he tried to stop Susanna from going out at night. Yet, you pushed Max aside and left to go out. He hurt his ankle when he fell. Max had always been sternly told by Susanna not to talk about anything that happened at home, or else he wouldn't get any dinner. But that day, unable to bear the pain, Max thought, maybe my always kind grandparents could help. Relying on his memory, he dragged his painful leg all the way to our house. If you have money for branded goods, you should have taken your son to the hospital. Opening the closet, I found it stuffed with expensive-looking bags and clothes. Max had confided in me, Mom always has beautiful clothes and bags. But she doesn't care about me. I had guessed that Susanna's belongings were flashy and expensive. I was trying to distract myself from the loneliness of Brian being away by shopping. So your son is also to blame. As Susanna pointed at me with a vein bulging in anger, a deep, authoritative voice echoed from behind me. Shut up. I saw you cheating with my own eyes. The speaker was undoubtedly my husband, Jim. He had joined me in confronting Susanna at her house. On the day Max came to us for help, Jim had shouted, "I won't lend you any money," in anger and left. Initially, I was furious with him. But his anger was directed at Susanna. Overwhelmed, he had blurted out those words without thinking. He had gone straight to Susanna's house after leaving ours. "I saw you getting into a car driven by a man. And I'm certain it was Max's first-grade teacher." Jim recognized the teacher because he looked at Max's school orientation photo every day. After Max confided the truth, I was informed of Susanna's secret meetings with Max's former teacher. "I heard from your lover too. You wore revealing clothes to parent-teacher meetings and aggressively pursued him." After hearing my husband's testimony, I confronted the former teacher at school. He admitted to the affair, regretting it. Then promised to resign and return to his hometown, never to see Susanna again. "Were you staying here because you didn't want to be separated from that man? Not for your child?" "No, that's not it." I pointed out to Susanna that she didn't take Max to the hospital because she feared being exposed for pushing and injuring him. And she was worried that if Brian, a doting father, found out, he might cut off her allowance. It seemed I had hit the nail on the head with the truth. Susanna's eyes darted around, unable to hide her agitation. But after a pause, she defiantly said, "If I plead with Brian, he will surely forgive me. He's totally smitten with me. He's head over heels in love with me." Susanna. Enough is enough. Brian. When did you get back? My son, Brian, who had been informed of everything by me, had returned home urgently to see the truth for himself, believing Susanna might pretend to be innocent in his presence. Brian watched everything secretly from hiding. "I've heard everything. I can't forgive you. Your attitude towards my parents is too much. I want a divorce." "Wait, just a minute. It was just a moment of weakness. Plus, Max is only 8. He's better off with his mother. I just saw him at the clinic, and he said he doesn't need a mother like you anymore." Despite being hit with this final blow from her son, Susanna continued to apologize and hopelessly sought reconciliation. However, Brian firmly refused. Then, Susanna turned towards me with bared teeth and a fierce look. "This is all your fault. Now he's leaving me. How are you going to take responsibility for this? That's your own doing. Plus, I heard you've always seen Brian as nothing more than a cash cow." I had been sniffing around about Susanna, checking her background against the wedding guest list to see if she had any hidden tales. "And I'll be sure to tell your parents everything, so be prepared for that." "Stop it. My dad hates dishonesty. If they find out about this, I'll be disowned. Then who will take care of me? You're an adult. Why don't you work for yourself?" "Absolutely not. I've been living a comfortable life as a housewife on Brian's salary. Working now would be so humiliating." My husband and son were so appalled by her selfishness that they were speechless. "You should learn from this hardship and reflect on your actions. Please, can't you do something?" "I'm sorry. I really regret it. I have no one else to turn to but you now." Susanna was begging for forgiveness in tears. However, I just looked at her coldly, giving no response. Thinking her situation was dire, she began to kneel and cry out repeatedly. "I'm sorry. Please help me. Max reached out to you for help so many times. Yet, you ignored him. Thinking only about saving yourself is too selfish. Hearing my words, Susanna broke down crying. But I had no sympathy for her and had her thrown out of the house. Later, the divorce between my son and his wife was finalized, with Susanna owing $30,000 in compensation for the child neglect. Having spent all her savings, Susanna was forced to work at a nightclub. But her selfish nature quickly got her fired. Now, she's juggling jobs in road construction and cleaning. Brian is still required to work overseas, but he has promised to return home as often as possible to see Max. Until Brian returns, my husband and I will take care of Max, filling the gap of the time we couldn't see him. Watching Max grow up has brought immense joy to both my husband and me.